In the late summer of 1899, the sun dipped low over the rolling hills of Missouri Hollow, casting long shadows over its dusty streets. Henry Caldwell stepped off the rickety stagecoach, adjusting the strap of his worn leather suitcase. The town was quiet, save for the occasional clop of a horse or the distant laugh of children playing near the creek. Henry had spent most of his life in bustling St. Louis, but the Hollow called to him with its promise of quiet and something unusual. The townsfolk regarded him with mild curiosity as he walked toward the center of town. He noticed a small shop, its windows fogged with age, the wooden sign swinging gently in the breeze. Caldwell's butcher shop. Henry frowned. Was it a coincidence that the owner shared his surname? Pushing open the creaking door, he was greeted by a bell's delicate chime. He expected the pungent, familiar smell of cured meat, but instead, a soft aroma of cinnamon, herbs, and something floral met his nose, something alive and comforting. Inside, the shop looked ordinary, yet peculiar. Wooden counters gleamed under the dim glow of lanterns, and rows of cleavers and knives were neatly arranged on the wall, polished to a shine. Behind the counter stood a man in his 50s, tall but slightly stooped, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Welcome," the man said warmly. "I'm Mr. Caldwell." Henry hesitated, then whispered, "I'm Henry Caldwell, too." "Ah," the man said, tilting his head with a knowing smile. "Perhaps destiny has brought us together." Some things are more than coincidence. Henry felt a strange calm wash over him. There was something about the shop and its owner that felt magical. Henry's curiosity got the better of him. "Sir, forgive me, but why doesn't your shop smell like meat?" Mr. Caldwell's smile deepened. "Ah, many people ask that," he said, wiping his hands on a linen cloth. "This shop doesn't deal in cruelty. We deal in care. We feed bodies, yes, but also hearts. That is the smell you sense, the smell of kindness." Henry blinked, unsure whether to laugh or feel moved. He realized this place was unlike any butcher shop he'd ever known, and perhaps unlike anything he had ever known in his life. Over the following weeks, Henry returned daily. Mr. Caldwell took him under his wing, teaching him the art of slicing, curing, and preserving, but never at the expense of life. They worked with fresh produce, cheeses, smoked hams, sourced ethically from local farms, and breads baked from scratch. The townspeople were drawn to the shop, not because of meat, but because it radiated warmth. They would step inside and inhale deeply, leaving with smiles, food and small gifts, jars of preserves, fresh bread, or a bit of candied fruit. Henry began to understand that the shop's true purpose wasn't commerce, it was community. One gray, rainy afternoon, a woman limped into the shop. Her clothes were threadbare, and her face was lined with years of sorrow. She carried an empty basket and looked around nervously. "I heard, your shop is different," she whispered. Henry handed her a warm loaf of bread, and Mr. Caldwell gave her a jar of preserved peaches. They offered no price, no expectation, only kindness. The widow's eyes glistened with tears. "I haven't felt this cared for in years," she said, clutching the gifts to her chest. Henry watched her leave and felt a warmth inside himself that he had never known. This was more than work. It was human connection. Not everyone was so quick to understand. A traveling merchant known for spreading gossip and exaggeration entered the shop one afternoon. "They say this shop is cursed," he sneered, tapping his cane against the floor. "A butcher's shop that smells like flowers? Ha! What are you hiding?" Henry smiled politely. "Nothing," he said. "We only hide cruelty. Otherwise the heart is open for all who come." The merchant scoffed and left, shaking his head. But whispers of the shop's oddity spread through the hollow. some with curiosity, some with envy. Henry realized that true goodness often draws scrutiny. Children discovered the shop next. They came running after school, expecting a place of fear, with knives and meat-stained floors. But instead, they found Henry and Mr. Caldwell teaching them how to slice vegetables safely, knead bread dough, and preserve fruit. Giggles echoed through the shop as the children worked, and the hollow itself seemed brighter, lighter, as if the warmth inside had spilled into the streets. The butcher's shop became a sanctuary, a place where laughter and learning replaced fear and hunger. One evening, Mr. Caldwell handed Henry a small leather-bound book. "These are our recipes," he said, "but they are also lessons for life." Henry flipped through the pages. Recipes for hearty stews, golden loaves, and sweet preserves were interspersed with short stories of courage, kindness, and forgiveness. Each recipe ended with a moral. Henry realized the shop wasn't merely about food. It was about legacy, about teaching people to nourish not just their bodies, but their spirits. A young man, gaunt and weary, appeared at the shop one chilly morning. His clothes were tattered, and he had not eaten in days. "I have nothing to eat," he whispered. Without hesitation, Henry offered him a steaming bowl of vegetable stew and a slice of bread. The young man hesitated, then broke down in tears. Why are you so kind?" Henry shrugged. "It's all we can give sometimes." The man left not just fed, but with hope restored. Henry understood. Sometimes, kindness was more nourishing than food itself. Word of the strange, smell-less butcher shop reached the town council. Some were skeptical, murmuring, "No meat? Can it even be called a butcher shop?" But when they entered, sampling the carefully prepared dishes, they saw children laughing, a widow smiling, and neighbors chatting warmly. Even the skeptics softened. Henry watched as the council members realized that this shop's value was not in its meat, or lack thereof, but in the lives it touched, the hearts it healed, and the community it built. Despite the shop's success, Henry often found himself staring out the fogged windows late at night, questioning his path. "Am I really making a difference?" he asked Mr. Caldwell one quiet evening. Mr. Caldwell placed a weathered hand on Henry's shoulder. "Every loaf you bake, every bowl of stew you serve, you're feeding more than hunger. You're feeding hearts, Henry. The world remembers acts of kindness long after bread has been eaten." Henry watched the warm glow of the lanterns reflect on the wooden counters, realizing the truth in Mr. Caldwell's words. The shop wasn't just about food. It was about hope, connection, and quiet miracles. Winter storms came unexpectedly, and with them, danger. One night, a bolt of lightning struck the old barn adjacent to the hollow. Flames leapt skyward, threatening to engulf everything in their path. Henry didn't hesitate. He ran into the freezing night, coordinating neighbors with buckets, wet blankets, and courage. The fire roared, but their combined efforts saved the barn, and more importantly, the butcher shop. By dawn, the fire was gone, leaving scorched earth and ashes behind. The shop, however, remained untouched. Henry realized that community wasn't just about kindness. It was about protection, courage, and standing together when the worst came. Winter brought influenza, sweeping through the hollow. Margaret, the widow Henry had befriended, fell gravely ill. Her frailty shook him. He delivered herbal soups, warm blankets, and stayed by her side for hours, reading aloud from the recipe book to lift her spirits. One morning she smiled weakly. "You've given me family again," she whispered. Henry felt a lump in his throat. He had thought his work was simple, feeding bellies, but it was about nurturing the human soul. The shop became a beacon, a place where even the sick found comfort, not just sustenance. Spring brought a traveling photographer, who heard tales of the butcher's shop that didn't smell like meat. Fascinated, he requested permission to photograph the shop, capturing its warmth and the people within. When the photos were displayed in a gallery in St. Louis, the story of Missouri Hollow reached far beyond the town. People were enchanted, not by the novelty of a smellless butcher shop, but by the joy, laughter, and care that radiated from it. Henry realized that true influence didn't come from wealth or fame, but from living a life that inspired others. Not everyone celebrated Henry's success. A rival butcher opened a traditional meat shop nearby, mocking the smellless shop and its unusual practices. "You call this a butcher shop?" he sneered. Yet townspeople flocked to Caldwell's. They preferred meals that were prepared with care, that lifted spirits and fostered kindness. Henry watched the rivals' sneers fade as people realized that a butcher's true value lay not in cleavers, but in the hearts behind them. One quiet afternoon, Henry discovered a yellowed envelope tucked inside the recipe book. It was a letter written decades ago by Mr. Caldwell's father. "Feed with heart, not hands. The world will remember kindness, not knives." Henry held the letter close. The shop wasn't merely a business, it was a philosophy, a legacy written in bread, preserves, and the simple warmth of human care. The shop's magic had always been in the people it touched, and now he understood his true purpose. As the years passed, Henry's life intertwined with the town's. He had grown close to Lily, Margaret's daughter, who had blossomed under the shop's warmth. One golden autumn day, amid the smell of freshly baked bread and preserved fruits, Henry proposed. The shop's walls bore witness as Lily said yes. Their wedding was simple, yet radiant. Neighbors celebrated, children laughed, and the warmth of the shop enveloped everyone. It wasn't just a union of two hearts. It was the culmination of a life built on love, care, and community. Time marches relentlessly. Mr. Caldwell grew old, his hands trembling slightly as he placed a warm loaf of bread on the counter. On his final day, he handed Henry the keys and the leather-bound recipe book. "Keep feeding hearts," he whispered, a tear glistening in his eye. Henry nodded, understanding that the shop's true legacy was eternal. The cleavers would still hang, the counters would still gleam, but the heart of the shop would live on in every act of kindness, every warm meal, and every soul it touched. Decades later, Henry, now with streaks of gray in his hair, found a letter left at the shop by a young girl from the Hollow. "I want to open a shop like yours. A shop that doesn't just feed, but loves." Henry smiled, a gentle tear slipping down his cheek. The shop's purpose had transcended generations. It wasn't about meat, cleavers, or commerce. It was about planting seeds of love and kindness in the hearts of those who would carry it forward. Even now, the shop stands proudly in Missouri Hollow. Children laugh as they knead dough, neighbors gather to share meals, and travelers marvel at the shop's unique charm. The cleavers hang not as tools of destruction, but as symbols of creation and care. The warm aroma of bread, preserves, and herbs fills the air. Henry, old and content, watches from the doorway. He knows that the shop's magic isn't in its food. It's in the warmth it spreads, the hearts it nourishes, and the legacy it leaves. And in that, every meal is a miracle, every day a blessing, and every soul a story waiting to be fed.